In the year of 2014, Russia was hosting the Winter Olympics in Sochi, and the eyes of the world were upon them as they were having this huge moment. But before the games were over that year, Russia and Putin in particular got very embarrassed as this pro-democracy uprising took place in the capital of Ukraine. It actually led to Ukrainian's president actually fleeing the country, who was essentially this pro-Russian guy at the time. Russia, of course, had installed this pro-Putin guy to be the president of the country to make sure that they were still aligning with Russia's views and not getting any ideas about becoming a part of NATO or aligning with Western culture. And so in 2014, following these mass protests in Ukraine, with citizens demanding their country be a Western-facing nation integrated with Europe, that is no longer to be managed as a corrupt territory of Russia and the Kremlin. That pro-Putin leader had been installed by by Russia. Initially, he responded by killing lots of those protesters on the streets. And that just looked horrible alongside all the Olympic coverage that Russia was hosting. And so ultimately, he ended up fleeing the country. He fled to Russia after the situation intensified, and the people in Ukraine won. But Russia was not having it. They were not allowing them to have a prolonged victory. And so they were infuriated by this news so much that they decided to annex Crimea, which is part of Ukraine, and they sent in Russian military forces. After that major event, the Obama administration imposed sanctions on 11 Russians. Steve Holland from Reuters reported at the time, quote, "The sanctions were the most visible sign of U.S. anger at Russia's attempt to absorb the Crimea region in southern Ukraine, reflecting the deepest plunge in U.S.-Russian relations since the Cold War." End quote. And this news was so concerning that it ultimately got Russia kicked out of the G8, thenceforth making it the G7. For those of you who are unfamiliar with that term, it's basically a group of the world's 7 largest economies. We got Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the US. And according to BBC News, the group regards itself as a community of values with freedom and human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, and prosperity and sustainable development as its key principles. Subsequent to those events of Russia being removed from the G8, making it the G7, the United States pledged $1 billion in aid to Ukraine and condemned Russia, and that was just remarkable. I mean, it showed another sign of we're with you and we've got your back, Ukraine. We are your ally. We are your friend. But following those events, President Obama announced the European Reassurance Initiative, which later changed its name to the European Deterrence Initiative. But essentially, this was quite a huge step, because after the European Reassurance Initiative was created back in 2014, the Obama administration posted this statement on their website, quote, "To reassure allies of our solemn commitment to their security and territorial integrity as members of the NATO alliance." The statement continues, this is, quote, "necessary and appropriate show of support to allies who are now deeply concerned by Russia's occupation and attempted annexation of Crimea and other provocative actions in Ukraine. The United States stands by its allies as they have stood by us." End quote. So these 4 major actions were taken in retaliation against Russia for their reprehensible actions. 1, sanctions. Russia gets sanctions by the Obama administration. 2, they get kicked out of the G8, making it the G7. 3, the United States pledges $1 billion in aid to Ukraine while simultaneously condemning Russia. And 4, President Barack Obama creates the European Reassurance Initiative, which later becomes the European Deterrence Initiative, basically as a show of force and commitment and solidarity with Ukraine and also our European allies. Hey, we've got your back. We see what Russia is doing, and we will defend you. We will help you. We will protect you.